I guess Conan has a party every year. He invites, A-list celebrities, comedians, the works, and he had invited Rob, who then brought his son with him. And I guess this wasn't some sort of quiet disagreement. This was loud enough that people overheard it. Nick was also reportedly heard walking up to a bunch of different people at this party being like, "Hey, what's your first and last name? Are you famous?" Like, just kind of these like off-putting questions. And we'll get into more of his background and some mental health struggles and some drug addiction and all of that, but just kind of approaching people in a very abrasive way and off-putting kind of way. He also reportedly asked this to comedian and actor Bill Hader, and there was some sort of exchange between the two of them. So, anyways, after that argument, apparently Rob and Michelle left the party early, which that detail really does matter in this case because it illustrates possible conflict and then motive and then escalation into the double murder. So the night ends, nobody knows what had happened inside that house, but the following day Rob and Michelle were discovered around 3:30 p.m. This was on Sunday, and they were discovered by their daughter, Romy. This was after a massage therapist couldn't get into the house and then called Romy to tell her they couldn't get in the house, and they arrived there. Police were called, and Rob and Michelle were discovered. They had both suffered multiple sharp force injuries that are in line with stab wounds, and their deaths were ruled homicides. Now, what's interesting is when the officers arrived, Nick's sister Romy reportedly warned them, saying that Nick, her brother, was very, quote, dangerous, which that detail alone is pretty heavy because for you to have to describe your sibling as dangerous, that's not something small or something light. That is like a very loaded, powerful statement. So Nick had been living in the guest house on his parents' Brentwood property, apparently. And according to multiple sources, Rob and Michelle had been increasingly worried about him, especially given his long history of addiction and mental health struggles, which this really is no secret. Rob and Nick had gone out and they had talked on panels, they had done talks, they've done interviews where they talk about their dynamic as father and son. They talk very candidly and transparently about Nick's struggles with addiction throughout his life. And Nick himself has also even spoken out publicly about cycling in and out of rehab since he was a teenager, also spending periods of his life homeless because he was battling addiction and all of these struggles. So the point being, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit here, but on Sunday at around 3:30, they discover Rob and Michelle's bodies. So then detectives start building the timeline, right? And they go over to one of the gas stations and they ask the staff to pull that surveillance footage for a very specific time frame. And sure enough, that's when they see Nick on the screen, and investigators reportedly said, there he is. So it didn't take very long after that, and less than 6 hours after his parents' bodies were discovered, Nick was arrested. Now, according to reports, Nick had checked into the Pierside Santa Monica Hotel around 4 a.m. on Sunday morning. So think of like whatever went down probably went down between midnight and 4 a.m. is my guess of late Saturday into early morning Sunday. So he checked into this hotel at around 4 a.m. This, again, allegedly just hours after the murders. And sources told TMZ that he left behind a trail of blood in that hotel room. Later, when hotel staff entered the room, they reportedly found a shower full of blood, blood on the bed, and they also noted that the windows had been covered with bed sheets, which to me, this kind of strikes as, I don't know if I would say odd, maybe, but it looks like there was no real intention to try to clean this up or cover it up and hide it. I think you could argue that paranoia was creeping in a little bit and that that's why he tried to cover the windows with the bed sheets. Obviously, there was blood in the shower. He did try to clean himself off, but once he left the hotel, it's not like he tried to carefully use bleach or anything like that to clean up the trail behind him, which 2 points could be argued for that, I suppose. One, due to any sort of mental health incident, maybe he didn't realize or have the capacity to think through what that should look like, or maybe he left the hotel expecting to return back and then was arrested, unfortunately, before he could even have the chance to return.